Invisible Soldiers podcast.
Welcome to the Invisible Soldiers podcast. I'm Corey.
I'm Rebecca.
And this week we have a special episode for you. Due to all of the layoffs happening around the country, we really wanted to tap in on how that affects our industry and talk about ways to navigate that, how to see the signs, and to talk about the distinction between being fired versus a layoff. Obviously, Rebecca, we've been in the game a long time, so we've seen a lot of this before.
Too many. It's like it's cyclical.
Yeah. Nothing puts fear in your heart like when you hear those words that, layoffs are coming. It usually starts in the rumor mill, or sometimes there's something big on the news that kind of lets you know. But it's different than being fired because usually when people fired, it's performance based, right?
True.
There is a track record that lets you know you were not living up to the level that your employer wanted or expected you to live up to, right? You've been pulled to the side. Maybe there was a bad evaluation. Maybe you've even been put on probation. But the layoff has nothing to do with you. It's business related. It's bottom lines, being in the red or being in the black, right? And I think for a lot of people, that's just a lot harder to accept.
100%. It's hard to accept that the business that we're in is for profit. I think that's the other thing too, is that, sometimes it's not always as black and white as thinking about being the red and in the black. Sometimes it's also making sure that we are protecting profit margins. And while that sounds crazy, just from a business perspective, inside of the profit lives how we are able to promote you, how we're able to bonus out. So, we get so attached to the work that we are doing and we want to win the awards. And don't get me wrong, Corey, there is no one in this business that does not want to win a Cannes Lion.
For sure.
But also we want to make sure that we are fulfilling the expectations of our clients, which is the work moves the production of things, the sale of things. So
yes.
We have to know that, at the end of the day, when layoffs do come, it is associated to how well the business is running or what expectations that one might have. Like if you're in a major agency and there's a holding company, like that also shifts how people get laid off.
For sure. And for all the creatives out there, this is what distinguishes us from an ad school, right? Ad school is just about making cool ads for the sake of cool ads, right? Business, once you enter the industry, it's about creative business solutions, right? So there's a business solution attached to every creation that you make.
Do you feel like when you were like coming through though agencies, like in your junior copywriter years, your copywriter years, even like maybe even through associate creative director, they let you know that you were in a business? Could you connect that dot back then?
As a junior, no. I'll say as a junior, everything is coming at you so fast and your head is spinning. You are just trying to keep up with the pace of the job. You're trying to learn the best practices, get the right reps and all of that stuff. No, you're not thinking about business. You're trying to figure out what's in front of you.
Right.
It's not only after when you start going to client meetings and you start getting in front of the client. I think that was the first time I was like, oh, okay, this is business. When you see what pisses the client off. And what usually pisses the client off is when we don't solve the business problem.
Mm.
So that's when I was like, oh, I got it, But I think when you're not in front of the client, I think it would be easy for you to not understand how those two go together.
Yeah, I would agree. Like, again, 100 years ago when I started as an account person, it was always just about the work, right? Like, again, I was just a traffic coordinator moving routers, and you pop in and you have this person sign it. For those of you who are not analog, we actually used to go into the office and we had things that we would print out,
Right.
Film that we would review on a light box. But I don't ever recall really knowing how the business worked. And it wasn't until moving into HR and hiring where I was like, oh, like I see what's happening, or in terms of like how scopes of work is signed, at the beginning of a production, we have this amount of dollars, and at the end, it costs twice as much. And who has to go across the street and ask for that
Mhm.
kind of money? And what that does to the hiring,
Yeah.
right? So, like going over production, you don't think about that. But like if we don't get paid for that, if we go over, well, the agency eats that. And if we eat that, then that means that it affects the amount of FTEs that we have. And I don't really recall knowing even what FTE meant, like full time employee.
Mhm.
Those are the things that I love talking about, especially the creative talent, Black creative talent, as everyone's ascending in their careers, is like the teams that they're building,
Yeah.
really thinking about their profitability. If you have a solid ass team and you can attack the creative problems, like you can trust the people that are in your team. You've got strong creatives, but they're also good people managers. They know how to hire freelancers. They know how to keep the project going online. Those types of creative directors, that discipline, it's so exciting to see. And I've seen some of these creative directors now start like little shops, again, like, our podcast in general, you're not invisible. Like they're
Right.
fully out here, even yourself, I'm sure you are doing all the things, whether it's winning new business, building organic business beyond making a really dope spot. You're also, hopefully keeping the business going so that like we can all stay employed.
Yeah. So, have you ever been laid off?
Oh, come on. Yeah.
Well, you know what? I'm blessed. I've never been laid
Ah,
off. I've never been laid
yeah.
off.
Yeah.
So let's get into that. Like, now, I will say you and I have both witnessed massive layoffs.
Yeah. And I've done them because of what I do for a living.
Okay, it is the weirdest thing to like show up on like a Friday
Oof.
and all of a sudden you start getting these like emails or text messages from friends, people hitting you up on Messenger, and they're like, "Yo, have you talked to so and so?" And it's like, "What?"
Oh, so that's how that happens. Because Corey, I'm on the other side because you and I play on different sides of the thing,
Right,
right? So
right, right, right.
I'm on the day before looking at the list. And
Okay,
you're
well,
on
well,
the
okay, well,
talk to me about what it's like on the business side, like when things start kind of buzzing around, things don't feel secure around here.
it's like a slow train coming. You can usually feel the tide turning. You can tell when you are in good favor with the client from a creative side. Like you can feel that. You can feel it when your account counterparts have these great relationships. And then you can feel when that starts to wane. You can feel when, somebody hasn't been out to dinner or lunch with somebody in a long time. Feel it in the
Yikes.
meetings. No, you can literally feel it in the meetings. Like you can feel it in how the work is being received. And then you start to go, oh no. So I've seen that, I've felt it, and then being in the agency on, when shit finally hits the fan, you like calling around saying, have you seen so and so? Or you going to a company intranet and you're typing in names and the names aren't
Oh.
popping up. Or people tell you if your phone rings, don't answer it. That's scary. So it's just a part of the business.
It's true.
It's just a part of it. I don't think it should be as scary as it is. Like, unfortunately, we build lifestyles and lives and homes around what we do for a living, and that can be just snatched from under you at any time, right?
Yes.
So, how do you navigate it? How do you read the signs? I know, I'll tell you this. The one thing, because you talked about when did I connect knowing that this was a business. My dad, being in the industry, always told me, he said, if you are working for a client, you need to start reading the business page and staying in tune with what's happening
Yes.
with that client business. You need to check the stocks, see
Come
what's
on.
happening. Like you have to, you need to be in tune with these things. And this was early on in my career. And I was like, really? You know? And then sure enough, yeah, it's true.
It's true. And I think the hard part now, I don't know about you, but I work at an agency where we are mostly remote. So, like, not being in the same space is different in terms of how, like, energy moves as well as information, right? To your point, we would go in and you could kind of feel it. I'm on the other side in terms of like when the business decides to make a decision. I have been oftentimes have to be the person that delivers the news. And that is heartbreaking, to say the least, to have to deliver that type of news,
For sure. I've done it too.
right? It's never about the person delivering the news. It's always about the person that's receiving. So I always try to make sure to do it with dignity and give that person space to share whatever they're feeling in the moment. I think you said it before, like just having the earth move underneath you because you've built a whole life. And again, because it's a business, you've got bills to pay. So, like, you're quickly thinking, and I've been laid off too. So, like, quickly thinking, how am I going to pay for this? And, pride is attached to it. Well, if it's performance based, how did I know? How could I have failed? All the things I think go through your mind on both sides of being let go and having been let go. But I will say, because I've been in this business, you've been in this business too, to be honest, and this sounds terrible, but like, it's gonna be all right. Like,
It
there's
will.
so like
It
it's
will.
such a like there are so many businesses that are growing. There are so many people that are figuring out new work streams. There are so many tools to help you get connected to your next opportunity. I try to continue to uncover people. Like, if somebody reaches out, I love seeing people's LinkedIn profiles that say, I'm open to having a conversation with you. So, like, the most senior level people are opening their door, their virtual
Yeah.
door for you to connect. And if there is a financial opportunity for you to join an organization, and I think people have to remember that. So, to your point and what your dad said about reading the trades, I not only do I read Adweek on the digital side, but I have it delivered to my house. So, like, they had RGA on the front. I think, was it RGA? I can't remember which one, but like, they just did a bunch of layoffs, and Meta did 10,000 yesterday. And
Yeah. Yeah.
so, like, knowing what's happening, if you are a senior leader in your organization and you are blindsided that you might have to deliver bad news to your people, I would say that this is a lesson for you to start to really lean into your business more. Like, if you are a creative director and above, if you are head of a strategy department, regardless of your gender or your race, like, this is your opportunity to really learn the business so that you can protect your people. To be honest, like, if you spent so much time building an amazing team, you got to know how to manage it.
Yeah. You remember the movie Up in the Air?
Oh, yes.
George Clooney. So that movie came out 2009. So that was like right
Ooh,
after
that's
that
right.
was like right after recession. All these layoffs, and you go watch that movie, and I just remember it gave me butterflies in my stomach, man. Like watching that, and like people like my kids in college, and
Yeah.
like all of that. Yeah, but that's kind of how it is. Like they give you a box, and you got to go out. I've had to like walk people out before, and
Right.
it's weird.
What's it like after, if you're not impacted, how does it on the team when your leader has
There's
moved?
survival remorse, like big time. Yeah, you feel weird for still having a job.
Mm,
You just do. You become attached as a team
yeah.
because the number of hours. I think this is what people don't know. So I think we bond on the creative side. We bond like a sports team.
Yeah, yeah. I
We
imagine.
do. We are up sometimes 2, 3 in the morning and working and sending text messages and jumping on Zooms, and we are cranking, right? And when you go through that experience enough and you come out on top and you go in and then you sell the work that it sells and all of that, right? It bonds you. There's a level of trust that you build between each other. Like, I know I can count on you to stay up late, deliver, make the meeting the next day, give a good presentation, like all these check marks, right? You become very tight because I always tell people, if you have a job anywhere, your job is to make your boss look good, right?
Yeah.
And your boss's job is to make his or her boss look good, right? And the same way that chain travels up when there's disarray and the trust breaks, and I can't count on you to have your assignment at the said time, then that same kind of lack of trust travels all the way up to the top. So
Oh,
and then all of the anxiety and anger and fear comes traveling back down, and it's a cycle, right?
yeah.
So when you finally get in a groove and you're working with people that you trust and everything's going well, and then to just see people let go, it's rough, right? So there is a survivor's remorse that happens. And then after that, I think from the creative point of view, we are always kind of, because we can go out and freelance, there's an independent contractor aspect of what we do anyway, right?
Yeah,
So I think, it's just about turning on that part of yourself once you get let go, because opportunities are out there. We are makers, creative people. We make things, and somewhere somebody needs to get something made.
I agree.
It's just about finding who that person is, who those people are. But we make things. We come up with ideas that in the real world manifest and turn into things like TV commercials and
Come on.
digital ads and everything else, and sometimes even product innovation. But we're makers. And so I think as long as you stay in a maker mentality, you'll be fine.
I agree. And I will say, and I don't always want to be like rose colored glasses, but I am a forever optimist and I remain optimist and I pray for positive outcomes all the time. I've also seen it give people an opportunity or a runway to pursue other passions. This one woman that I worked with at Global Hue a long time ago was an account person and a solid account person, but she would bring cake into the office all the time,
Mhm.
like, all time. She'd just be up all night making cakes, and then she would also use her PTO just to go to, like, culinary programs and stuff, and I told her, I was like, I can't wait until one day I get your resignation letter because 'cause you're gonna go be a baker and, or a pastry chef," and she finally figured it out, and she quit her job. Not a layoff, but I guess what I'm saying is that, like, I think what's amazing sometimes in those uncertain times is that it can push you to a totally different level of transformation, where you might decide to do something and go out on your own. Again, even watching people go out on their own in terms of building new agencies. Shout out to that new agency called The Kitchen Table. I don't know if you've seen that, but a crew who are kind of going after the dollar as well as, I think, appropriately representing culture. I'm really excited to see what work that they're able to grab. I saw a new talent agency in Ad Age last week. So even in the midst of shifts and changes in the market, I think you can reinvent yourself. And to your point, Corey, you're a maker. You might have to make something up. It's,
Hey, this is a time, I think, when there are a lot more outlets than back in the day, right?
right?
Upwork and all of these different places where where you can meet the people who have needs. There's just so many
Man,
more places now. But let's talk about reading the signs, reading the tea leaves, right? We hinted about it a little bit, but there are places where you can kind of look for the signs. The first one I think is in the agency. You can start to look for those signs that maybe there is some upheaval with your client
yeah.
where things aren't on the same sturdy ground that they used to be. A lot of times you'll see a lot more huddle ups that just start out of nowhere. And you're like, where's everybody huddling up? Like, what?
What's that look like in a virtual world?
That's a great question. I've never been through it in
Mm.
the virtual world. I've never seen that. So that is a great question.
Like, I wonder if it's like, again, like on that side, like, I think the relationship about the client is really interesting. And how do you approach that? Like, if you did feel a way, would you say something to your account person?
If you have the relationship, sure, why not?
Mm.
But you might not get the answer you're looking for depending on who the person is. And I've been in situations where you don't get a real answer, but you have to pay attention to those things. You just do,
Yeah.
So when you start to feel that little weirdness in the agency, also the weirdness in the client meeting, there's nothing like being in a client meeting and you're giving the best performance of your life, right? And you can look at the face and know that they are not paying attention.
Yikes.
It's like this thing is over.
Have you seen that before?
I have. I have.
Oh, man.
I have. I have.
Don't say, don't say.
No, no, no. I would never say, but I have. Also, think this is something I saw before. Mergers.
Mergers.
Mergers are a red flag. Because when a merger happens, it sounds like the business is expanding, right?
Yeah.
But usually in a merger,
It's not.
usually,
Oh my
usually
god.
in a merger, one side brings their executives in and their executives kind of take charge, right?
Yes.
And it might not be your client, it might be the side that they're merging with.
Yes.
And when that happens, that means all the people that you've been reporting to lose all the juice, and any favor you have with them means nothing now,
Yes. Yes.
right?
I've seen that happen a couple times, and I will tell you the other part about that too is duplication of role. So I saw one, I won't give any names, but I saw a small agency pick up a big piece of business, which meant that they were going to sweep the AOR underneath of them. The AOR had been working on that piece of business for like 100 years. So
Mhm.
this new little agency who thought, well, we're going to come in and tell this major agency how to do their jobs.
Mhm.
Org charts go on the wall. They try to figure out, who's going to lead creative, who's going to lead strategy, so you get into a position where relationships come into play.
Absolutely.
And a lot of that, to be honest with you, if you've been fortunate to be at a few agencies, even inside of a holding company, a lot of your opportunity comes from the relationships that you build. So, like, again, I recommend for, as you move through your career, you make people your ally, you work hard, to your point you said earlier about making sure that you deliver, you're a trusted teammate. Like that goes so far all the way up into your C suite role. So, like, when mergers show up and you find out that you're going to get like Pac-Man swallowed up by this big person, you hope that those relationships are there, where you might be able to survive it. But you're absolutely right. It feels like growth, but it is a big impact and shift to what was and some new form that's going to grow. And it may or may not include you.
And I was talking about a merger on the client side, and you were talking about on the agency side,
Oh,
which
yeah,
is
sure.
yeah. So I think no, but that's a great point. Like it affects both, right?
Yes.
So when you see layoffs coming, now you have to start to look around and self-evaluate. You have to say, could it be me? One of the things that we talked about, I think you just hit on. For me, professionalism in our business often trumps talent.
I think so too.
It's just a fact of life. Professionalism is what you give me every day. Talent is the potential of what you may be able to bring me,
Right.
right? And if I have to weigh the two, and often talent comes with headaches,
Yes.
like that part.
Artist.
When I think about, when you're building the construction of employees at an ad agency, it's a lot like I'm a big basketball fan, NBA fan. So it's a lot like the roster construction for a team, right? You need so many vets. You need some vets on
Yes.
your roster. You need people who've been there, tried true. They can show other people how to get to the mountain. You need those people, right? You need a certain amount of young, cheap talent as well. Those people often bring a lot of energy and, there's value to them. These are people who can over deliver their salary.
Yes, and they're fresh. They're fresh too, right? So,
They're
like, super
fresh,
optimistic, they'll give a
optim-
lot.
absolutely. You need a certain amount of young, cheap talent on your roster. That's just part of it. And then you start to get to like, okay, I think you need a few glue people, people that everybody likes, makes everybody better. They raise morale. They can always, they make working on projects go a little easier, feel a little better. You need a couple of those people, right? Because in the day after day after day grind, a lot of people get worn down. A lot of people start moaning and bitching, and that energy does not produce the best work. Just doesn't.
No, no.
So when you're giving yourself this self evaluation, trying to figure out, am I going to make it or am I going to not? Or even for the next time, start to think about your professionalism level. Are you the person that's there early? Are you the person that always meets deadline? Are you the person that a manager is always having to run behind and check if you have your work? Are you a self motivator? these are the self evaluation questions that you have to ask. And those are the check marks that you want to be hitting. If you're somebody like that, you're valuable to me. I'm really gonna, when we have that conversation about like who we letting go, I'm fighting for you.
But even as like a senior leader though, like when you are managing your team, I think Meta said that they were letting go of 10,000 people and they said that this is the year of like optimization. And I know that in my organization, and shout out to my ECD, he gave me that word last year as well, is we really do need to optimize how we utilize talent and how we staff the business, right? So like that's another part of leadership in the creative side is, not only being able to build really great work, but like the types of people that you bring on your team, like the designer, how much design is needed, who's the ninja that can, get out those banners like quickly. And like, I think that there has to be a reimagination in how we staff. Like it used to just be like, okay, this job, we'll give all this shit work to the junior, right?
Yeah.
But you could actually be more efficient if you just found a really great talent that loved to do that particular type of work. And there are people that want to do that as opposed to like putting value, right? And then like the ability to bring in people that are highly conceptual creative directors. I worked at, and I will give them a shout out. When I worked at Team Detroit and they were the AOR for Ford, I worked for this ECD as this creative recruiter. And we had this thing called Train, Talent, Resource, and Insight Network. I had $2 million in lieu of staff. So instead of hiring full time people with a budget of $2 million, which is probably back then, maybe about 5 or 6 people. So I had $2 million to just go and find creatives to come in for like 2 weeks and just concept on cars. People were giving me numbers. I talked to these designers who used to design the Chanel windows and they came to Detroit and concepted for 2 weeks on the Drive One campaign. So like as a recruiter anyway, and selfishly talking about what I do, when I have a creative partner who can also see how to optimize their business so that we can find the best talent to service the client, like that is when I think you're knocking it out of the park when you're really thinking about it. At that time, it allowed Team Detroit to then dig into organic growth and they were able to grab the global Ford business. And there was like one person assigned to that piece of business. And then by the time I was heading out the door, that was a $6 million piece of business. And he was able to do that as an executive creative director because he understood the value of creative and finding the right people to do what he needed to do, as opposed to like ego.
Hmm. Hmm.
It's a sweatshop. I think creatives talk a lot about that too, like the culture of a sweatshop. No matter how creative you are, they give you some bullshit that doesn't light your fire.
So, Rebecca, let's talk about LinkedIn because that naturally feels like a great source for people who are starting to get a little anxious about what might happen. And I know you worked there before, so can you give any good advice about how to use that for good?
Absolutely. I think it is obviously and currently the largest platform to talk about our career journey, how to find a job, also space for learning. They have a huge learning platform where you can consume content to help you push your career forward and sharpen tools and your skills. I think when you are caught in a position and you are impacted because you've lost your job due to a layoff, I think it's a perfect place to one, announce that you are looking for something or you're open to something. And there are actual features on the platform that can alert other people. I think the other thing too that it's imperative is that you outline your skills and your experience and clearly define what your role was, especially if you are a people leader. One of the biggest things that people are always looking for when they're hiring is your skills to manage people and manage business. I think if you're a creative, making sure that your portfolio really captures the breadth of work that you can do. Selfishly, I'm looking for a senior copywriter with amazing broadcast and conceptual skills. But like make that obvious. I think the other thing too that I've loved to see on there, especially like from a content perspective that I think resonates with us and what we're doing is I love to see all of the thought leadership, like people who are posting regularly about what's happening in the industry, what's happening even in the social justice space, like have a personality on there.
Yeah, for sure. I would even say, don't forget to be humble. I think there's no value in having 1,000 LinkedIn followers. And then if you do get laid off, you are not humble enough to go and make a post that says, hey guys, I'm looking for a job.
Yes.
That makes no sense to me. I think that humility part and just maximizing the network is important.
I think so too. And also, I think the other thing that I love too is people who have openly said, I need help. I don't think that we've been in a position in the past where we're even allowed to say that. There used to be, and there probably still is, quite a bit of shame around if you get laid off. I feel like we might have touched a bit on that earlier, but knowing that if you are impacted, it is not about your performance. Unfortunately, again, the business that we're in is for profit. And so sometimes resources have to be scaled back. So if you are a part of a layoff, it stings, but you got to just jump back in there, like truly jump back in there, have coffees, virtual coffees, get your resume done. There's a ton of people that are on the platform that are doing lives. A woman I used to work with, I don't know her well, but I'm a super fan. Her name is Ronnie Dickerson. She goes live, I feel like every other day, and she talks about like if you're stuck in your career or how you can do that. So she's a champion of that. So again, finding people that are creating content on there that support, your next play.
Yeah, that's really important. If you are somebody and you start having chats with recruiters, how can you tell if a job is real? Because I know a lot of people, we've had conversations where they felt like they kind of got used by the system a little bit. They spent 2 or 3 weeks with a recruiter and then they kind of felt like maybe they were just being kind of pulled in for maybe some other reasons. So, how can you tell if the job is real?
For sure. I will say if you are seeking a new role, at least how I manage my desk as a recruiter, one, I'm very serious about the roles that I am looking for. I am open to say and to any candidate to ask me that very question. Like, when are you planning on hiring this role? Is this role actually funded? Do you have internal candidates that you're considering? Like, get a good sense of what they're trying to do and what they're trying to accomplish. And the reason why I say that is because what people don't know inside of talent acquisition is that when an open position comes along, there's so many considerations that are happening. We're thinking about somebody who could potentially take the role internally. We might have referrals from a client or from a good friend or from somebody who used to work here, or even a lot of companies have referral programs. Referrals will get, again, kind of pushed to the front of the class. And then also knowing like how long they're going to interview for. I will also say in the climate that we're in, I know that sometimes it could feel like if you're a person of color that maybe you have been considered to meet, some sort of
Quota.
quota, right? Right.
Hey, this has been a topic of conversation within our peer group for sure,
Yeah.
especially after 2020 when a lot of promises were made and a lot of people they get the call or the first reach out. So now they're part of the interview pool, but they feel like the offer never follows. So I think it creates a little bit of skepticism. Am I being recruited or am I being used?
And I will tell you both. I will tell you both. And how do we know that, Corey? Because there used to be a narrative that we didn't exist at all. But like I can give you two handfuls of amazing creatives of color who could lead your business. And so if you've met with all of them and none of them landed a job, then one plus one equals two. So again, yes, sometimes it does feel like it is performative, which is why we've got, I think, amazing people in these general market agencies who are really speaking out about it. I think Walt is definitely one of those voices who pushes against that. And, they've got the one film about the ECDs and CCOs who are living inside of the general market space who are Black. Those voices are necessary to talk about exactly what you were hitting on. Why are there only seven?
So let's say the hammer drops the day you feared finally comes to fruition and now you have to like set yourself in action really quickly. I think the only advice I would say is like do not let the fear and anxiety rule you. You have options, you have time, and more importantly, you have talent that walk out. Because I've been on the other side where I'm walking somebody out holding a box that is uncomfortable You get like 10 minutes to shut down your computer and you got to go. You got to leave the premises, right? That sucks. But after that, there's a huge opportunity to bounce back, to show the people that let you go that they maybe should have let somebody else go.
Right. Right. Or find something in, in the future. I always say that, my past is a great reference point, but it is not a destination and it gets greater later. So to your point, what do you do? Put in action, again, be scared and sad for a little while, but set the alarm clock and, get out there. The same way you got into the last position you were in, you will find yourself in a new role.
And today we just have way more tools to alert people, to create new things, and to put those things in front of people who are higher. So stay optimistic.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a rough time out here right now, and it's affecting a lot of us. And this is just part of advertising. I never used to bring personal pictures or anything to my office, and people be like, "Why does it look so clean and bare in here?" And I was just, I was really scarred. I was like, because if I have to walk out with a box, it's going to be a little box.
Right.
It's going to be a tiny ass box. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I've never made myself at home. And I think that's just the scars of seeing it too many times.
Yeah. And now it's so different because for a lot of people who are virtual or hybrid, it happens between, we talked about it earlier about Up in the Air. That's that movie, right?
Yeah.
It's like that now,
Zoom,
it's
right?
yeah, it's
You turn
screen
it in
to
a computer and that's it.
that's it. You close the monitor and they send you a label and, you unplug. That is unnerving, in this new world. So that's why, again, hop on the platforms and like you said, be humble, but share your story and connect with people and get to your next play quickly. From a paperwork perspective, read all the paperwork that you receive, learn about when your benefits start, when they stop, see if you can afford. There are people that have children who are covered under their insurance and who have therapies and medications. So really figure that out. If you have to go onto unemployment, that is a benefit that you pay into. So there should be no shame around that. That money is owed to you. So if you need to access that, do that. Know that it's a storm and it's just a time as this, and that, eventually you will bump into something that honestly could be really, really great. To be honest with you, Corey, when it happened to me, I took the shittiest job ever and it pushed me to find the next best opportunity. So, like, also don't just take anything, because you're desperate.
And I think the lesson moving forward is, especially if you're going to survive this industry for a long time, is to not just be so dependent on your job.
Yes.
You have to cultivate other opportunities, other revenue streams. You have to cultivate other ways to show off your talents.
Yeah.
When you start to stop thinking of yourself as simply an employee and more of an entrepreneur or a business person, it changes the mentality. It changes the relationship that you have with your job moving forward.
Yeah, and the managing of your time. I'm so glad that you mentioned that. Like I remember at the height of, tech is having a challenge right now, but like in their greatest heyday of scaling, they would hire people and offer them from a time perspective, 80% of your time would belong to Google and then 20% of the time you could focus on your own endeavors. So like if you were in the tech space and you wanted to invent something, you could work on products and utilize their resources to go into like your dream. And so that was the first time I had even considered like, oh, I could manage my time where I don't, to your point, like I'm not just this person at this job. I can maximize and optimize my time where I can seek out passions, other revenue streams and connectivity. And I think in this new world that we're in, especially from a job perspective in our culture, we used to hide that. Like if you did have a side hustle, nobody knew that you were a poet.
Hey, this podcast, this was a labor of love. We're not making any money on it.
Right?
This is just something that we decided that we wanted to put out so young Black people entering the business could find a place that had catalog stories that they could learn from, right?
Yes.
But when you pull back and think about it, it's also self-serving in a way.
True.
Our names are attached to this. A potential Next employer, next employer could be listening. You never know.
Yes.
But the point is, you are more than your 9 to 5 job.
Yes.
And you need to continue and always be thinking out about different ways to put yourself out there, to let people see your talents.
Yes. And to be honest, like from a recruiting perspective, though, nowadays that's even more attractive. Like, I love to be able to talk to a creative director who not only is like a CD at an agency, but he just happens to be a world class DJ. Oh, he also designs sneakers. Right? Like, that is a very attractive thing now in terms of talent acquisition. Before it was like you had to give your whole self to the job. But I think now, with passions, like, it actually, I think, influences the work that we do. Like, at least that's what I see. So, like, I imagine, to your point, like, this is a labor of love. It gives you inspiration, it gives you happiness. You go to work probably 10 points happier.
For sure. Yeah. Yeah. That's what, for creatives, I said you're makers, right? If you're making stuff at work, when I follow you home, the trail shouldn't end there, right?
Oh,
When I follow you
yes.
home, your house should be filled with all the different things you're making,
Yes.
you know? Well, Rebecca, I think we've come to the end of another episode.
Agreed.
I think this is a good one. I'm happy we got a chance to kind of chat about this at least for a little bit because I know a lot of people are going through it.
Yes. And if there's anything we can do, pop into our DMs and we'll do our best to point you in the right direction.
Our email is invisiblesoldierspodcast@gmail.com if you ever feel like throwing us a note. On that note, thanks for listening to another episode of the Invisible Soldiers Podcast. Find us wherever you listen to podcasts. Appreciate you. Peace.
Peace.